Quack! 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 Quack!
Quack, 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 quack.
12 and go! I'm your host, Adam Shamail.
And I'm Aaron C. Schroeder.
That is right. And this is the Quack 12 podcast, the most official, unofficial Oregon Ducks podcast on the web footosphere. And Aaron, we won a football game, which is all you really can ask for in this world.
That's right.
I'm glad
Do
you
you
agree.
think we won it well?
Valiantly?
And also,
Mm-hmm.
let me get your temperature on this because dear audience, dear viewer.
Yes.
During the game, I texted Adam and I said, I can go as hot and heavy as you want me to on this game. Because at that time, what I saw were some UCLA players who... What?
I'm excited to hear where you're going with this.
Oh, okay. We had some
I'm on the
UCLA
edge of my
players
seat
that were maybe playing with a little bit too much heat, and that might have been because they had a chip on their shoulder or because they had that underdog energy. Maybe it was the music they had playing in their head being the wrong kind of superhero. I don't know what it was.
Maybe it's the
But I
fact
felt
that
like they were being... Huh? Yeah,
there was a lot
maybe.
of ex-duck on current
Yeah.
duck violence, is all I'll say.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we're talking about...
maybe made me think,
Hmm?
A, these kids are idiots because there's no berserker in history that was able to berserk for extended periods of time, because look at how injured they got by the end of it. Like they were
I know.
so banged up. It's like y'all are playing like fools.
Yeah.
So I was getting really hot at him because I was getting mad at him because I'm watching them be like, dude, calm down. You're going to hurt someone.
I mean, they did. Terrence Ferguson looked knocked the fuck out. I'm not sure if he actually was, but his arm was like limp to the side.
He had
Brian
little.
Addison.
They cut away pretty quick, but it looked like he had a couple of leg twitchies right after he hit the ground. The boy was concussed. He felt that metal zing that goes.
Well, don't
down
worry,
your
Aaron,
spine.
because Dan Lanning says he should be ready for Michigan State. Maybe
it was just concussion. I mean, no, it's just gonna be a problem in 20 years. He's fine now.
He's good. He's good. How many concussions have you had in your life, Aaron?
I would have to assume 4 or 5.
You joking?
I don't know. Maybe 2.
My leg. I've had bona fide 2. I know I've had 2.
I've never had one that was told to me. Oh, well, I guess one time when I was 8, I did bust the back of my head wide the fuck up on the side of a piece of concrete.
Yeah,
and I had to get 5 stitches.
Ooh.
So yeah,
oh my God.
That one is for sure documented.
That's for
Probably
sure.
got concussed.
Yeah.
The others are all undocumented because, it's Texas and they just say, you're fine, get up.
Oh, well, I know how much Texas hates anything undocumented, so I know that must be really hard for you.
Dang.
So I've had 2. One, I was playing tag. It was my birthday, I believe, with my friend. I slipped on a rock and just boom, hit my head on the driveway, knocked my ass out. I had to go to the hospital. Second time, I was fucking around with a friend. I had learned this James Bond jiu-jitsu move where you pretend to shake someone's hand and you flip them over your shoulder. And I did that to my friend who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And I did it and it was funny and we were laughing about it. Then like a couple days later, he did that to me and he was like, oh, okay, I'll get you back. Well, he's more rehearsed and practiced at it. So he just fucking knocked my ass out. him and my friend.
He also understands how to fall when it's being done to.
Yeah. him and my friends got so nervous. I don't blame them. They're teenagers at this point. But him and my friends get so nervous about it that they lie. This is on the 4th of July. And they go, okay, everyone tell Adam he fell out of a tree. Because like literally I'm in the car and I've got like I'm in that cycle of saying two things. Like I'm being like, what day is it? And they're like, it's the 4th of July. And I'm like, what happened? And they'd be like, you fell out of a tree. And I'd be like, oh, okay. What day is it? It's the 4th of July.
Are you kidding me?
And so I wake up on the 5th of July. Like literally, I remember hanging out with them, and then I wake up and it's the 5th of July, and I'm like, and I'm in my bed at home, and I'm like, Mom, what happened? And my mom, this is how unnature boy I am. Me and my mom, even though we had no reason not to believe my friends, we kept being like, so I fell out of a tree? I've never climbed a tree in my entire goddamn life. Like, why did I choose that day to climb a tree? And so for like a month, I would just every once in a while be like, talk to my friend. I'd be hanging out with him. I'd be like, so you're saying I climbed a tree and I got to the and then eventually he's all like, you didn't climb a tree. All right. Trevor knocked you out. We've been lying. I'm sorry.
Wait, Trevor knocked you? It was Trevor?
Not the Trevor, not the Trevor.
Oh,
that would be amazing. But yeah,
that would be awesome.
All I'm saying is I know how you feel, my man.
Yeah.
But
okay.
The game itself, I'll tell you one thing.
Well,
I have a theory. It's just like, it's very clear. There's just like between the nasty nature of UCLA being pissed that they're worse than us, hate us because they ain't us. 4 players, including Brian Addison, who was the nastiest, especially like kind of taunting, honestly, after knocking Terrence Ferguson out.
Okay, so I'm not just alone on an eye. Okay, good, because the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, because then he ends up messing his ankle up from playing like an idiot. Like that's going to start haunting him now. He's got to live with that ankle for the rest of the season. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah,
moron. It's like,
do you remember when Trayshawn Holden? They had that like it looks. I mean, at no point did I believe it was going to be this, but it looked like a scoop and score for UCLA. It would have made it like a 1-score game. It felt bad, even though it never was going to be a play. They just didn't blow the whistle. But Trayshawn Holden, that UCLA player runs by knowing the ref's not seen it and just hits him in the face.
Yeah.
Remember that like
yes.
Stuff like that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And then Dylan Gabriel actually played a pretty dang good game, except for one play. That pick.
Yeah, that interception.
Yeah. I mean, it was like just that alone. Especially because it was right before the half, it really makes you think of this game in a worse light. Even though in the end we won 34-13, we kicked their butts.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we're kind of on the same page because basically, I was maybe going to change my. I know I got a little hot and I got a little heavy. I would say I got a medium. I got a good medium going right there.
Yeah.
But something shifted in me.
You were half chubbing
when the game was over, in the fact that like some of my favorite players on the Ducks were legit out on the field for a minute talking to other players on UCLA, having actual like, oh wow, these kids actually love each, like this little group, whoever these UCL players are.
Yeah. Well, Dante Moore, our backup QB, or I'm assuming he's our second string. Like he never saw the field, which it is like, I assume he's not injured. It makes you wonder why they chose the other quarterback, Austin Novosad, to come in late. Cause you're like, was that just because you didn't want any bad blood? But like, like those are his friends. They're down. They know what's up. It was just, it really felt like Brian Addison. Well, the X
what it is. The reason why they didn't put him in, I think you're halfway there. It's not because they were worried that the Ducks might retaliate and go after him, but once he's out there, the defense is going to start putting a lot more pressure and violence on the offensive line to hurt them to get to him. Like, you know what I mean? So they're like, we're already thin here.
This is the thing. This is what I would say that really like kind of shows. This is a game that no Duck fan will ever really want to watch the highlights of, even though it was a dominating game and we looked great. It's because like by the end of it, I was just like, ugh, I'm glad that's over. And the fact that you had to wait till 8 p.m. for it to start. I was just like,
Bear, I was like, holy shit, it's like 11 at night. And like, I am so glad that.
Yeah.
I mean, but UCLA just had no class out there. Is really at the end of the day, they just didn't look. They look like a team that's about to spiral out of control.
And with like Ethan Garber,
their coach though is gonna. I hope I think I like their coach a whole lot, and I hope he helps. My whole thing with these players, my
they're
whole
in a Chip
thing with
Kelly hole.
Yeah, I just, even from high school, it was always drilled into us that you do not play sports like that. You don't. Yeah, you show some respect on the field.
Yeah, it was.
You don't get mad and rage.
But there were so many the game had such a nasty feeling that I feel like some Ducks need to take a step. Duck fans need to take a step back and really look at the stats. Sometimes the numbers don't lie. And
why? What's going on? Are people upset at the Ducks for not doing?
Just because basically like. The image of Dylan Gabriel throwing one nasty pick six before the half.
Sure.
Sometimes that they'll just hyper focus on that, and because they're just so afraid.
Did you not see him hustle and like go down? Did you not see him try and resolve that issue?
I loved him yelling at Brian Addison. That a lot of Duck fans.
That was also another great point. Yeah. But I mean, but Aaron went after that guy and got shoved the fuck down. Like he got.
but Aaron,
he's taking his hit.
Aaron,
yo.
UCLA, third down is a really important down for any football team, right?
Sure.
Like that. It's like certainly for your offense, if you're doing anything, unless you're scoring on first and second touches, like you need to get to the third down. They were and they're a famously bad third down team right now, but
cool.
1 of 10 on third down for like that is us dominating them. They only scored 2 field goals, and then there was that pick six that we gave them. Like we dominated this team so hardcore. In fact, we dominated them so hard that we have an expert. Listeners, this is a new guest. We've never had this person on. Hythloday, I do believe it's called, of Addicted to Quack.
Hythloday 1.
Oh, okay, this is the first one. Hythloday of Addicted to Quack joins us on the show right now to talk about, what was actually an ass kicking. Hythloday, how's it going, my friend?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing good. We were just saying it was a victory. It was a dominating victory. There was a few things that kind of, didn't leave you feeling great, but really there was it was a lopsided Oregon victory. We got out there with the win. Only the most ridiculous Duck fans would be too upset about this result. Like the kind of fan that would be like, I can't believe we only scored 6 points.
I mean, I did predict like 77 points with 2 of them being. I had high hopes that we were just going to obliterate them. So I was also on that ship.
My prediction was going to be that Dante Moore has a better stat line than Ethan Garber.
I mean, honestly, if there's something to be disappointed in, it's that. I mean, that was the worst possible moment and the worst possible thing to do. That pick six, because it's yet another successful first half drive. They're standing basically on the goal line, and then the highest possible leverage play that you do, where it's almost a guaranteed 7, even if he just dirts the ball.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's 4th down. They kick a chip shot field goal. so it's at least a 14 point, or it's
and
at most
to the player that is going to get the most motivation from the UCLA roster by returning that pick six, like Brian Addison,
so it's between or I guess they converted a 2-point conversion in this game, so it's somewhere between 15 or 10 point at the minimum swing. There are psychological factors sort of gives them life, but then but then it sort of deprives Oregon of garbage time, which is what I was really looking forward to in this game. I really think you probably would have seen backups, although they made an interesting decision. They put in Novosad instead of Dante Moore. I think maybe because they were trying to avoid humiliate, like maybe the optics of it, they decided might have been bad, or maybe given that the game was pretty chippy.
That's what we were saying too.
No pun intended, that they would have tried to kill him.
Well, especially it was the final drive too. It was literally the final drive. Yeah, the only non-Gabriel. Yeah,
but I mean, honestly, this is something that I noted during the Jim Moore era. It was not so much true in the Chip Kelly era, but I'm not necessarily accusing UCLA playing dirty or anything, but I always noticed more personal fouls in a UCLA Oregon game that I would notice, in other games. There's sort of UCLA is not a super, disciplined team under Jim Mora. Chip Kelly, is less of a big deal, but it seemed like that came roaring back, in this game. I don't know, it was just one player, or what, but there was some headhunting going on in that game. There's no point in denying it. It was pretty obvious that there were some personal motivations. There's a bunch of former Oregon players, on that UCLA roster. I don't want to speculate about their what their motivations were, but there was definitely, there was some heightened,
it was pretty amazing
in that game.
You could feel UCLA, you could feel their desperation for when it was near a 2-score game, especially after they got that second field goal, when they had that for a second complete bogus scoop and score, you could feel their desperation. And then the second that we got that other touchdown, it was as garbage time could be.
Well, I also sort of think there's I'll talk about this in a second. I think Oregon was sort of expecting UCLA to get deflated, or a part of Oregon's game plan, I think, was built around there was a lot of trick plays in this game, which is interesting, and it was sort of a weird balance, or an interesting balance between. There was a bunch of experimentation with trick plays. I'll talk about that more in a second. But also where those things weren't, where they weren't doing experimentation. Instead, they were doing efficiency stuff, the stuff that was, with one or two exceptions, they did do a couple of shot plays in the game, but it was efficiency trick play.
Pez Johnston, I mean? Trying to throw a touchdown.
Or an Emory Henry.
This is dope.
It almost got there. It was so close.
So which to me reads as they knew they had the game was going to be
in the bag.
Yeah, they knew they had the game in the bag. That's my interpretation.
That's what
Tristan
I thought.
Just published his, his film review article this morning. Actually, I've been traveling all weekend. I just got home. I watched the game in a hotel room.
Just now? You haven't even showered?
I did shower, but
okay.
I got in at 5 a.m. I edited Tristan's article at 6 a.m. Just before he published it. In fact, I think there's the table that opens his article in the offense, I think, has an error in it. He repeats the same number for offensive rush and offensive pass explosive rate, which I think is a copy paste error, because I get a different number for rush explosion, but I can't edit the table because of how tables work in course.
Listeners, go there now if you want to see that error.
Anyway, I had to message Tristan, but he's teaching a class right now. Anyway, it's all nerdery here at the Quack. Anyway,
you're telling me a guy that makes mistakes is teaching people stuff?
Oh no,
This is
Yeah,
bad.
humans make mistakes. That's another like I don't know takeaway.
No.
Like you can be completely dominant in your field, and because you're a human, make mistakes. Like
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel.
yeah. So
Take
that
note.
that
humans
that
also make mistakes.
Okay,
that pick six is a high leverage moment, right? It's a 14-point swing. It deprives the second half of garbage time,
Yeah.
and then to come out in the second half, I think Will Stein, like the biggest. Like I described strategically, where I think their game plan is interesting, where it's nothing but efficiency plays, and then where they try to get shots, their trick plays, like or quasi, if not trick plays, quasi trick plays, like their bomb shot is off a rolled pocket. They try an Emery and Henry play. They get they do the swinging gate for the 2-point. I think they were going to call another trick play, and then UCLA sniffs it out, and I think they call a timeout. There's they do a bunch of tackle over runs where they move an offensive lineman to the other side. So like the right tackle is on the left side of the ball. They do a bunch
we
of
had a fullback out for a while. Is that so?
Yeah.
Was I hearing this correctly? Like I wasn't really ready for that.
And then some of that gets curtailed because Terrence Ferguson gets taken out of the game by a hit that I didn't really think was a kosher hit. But anyway, my point is, so that's on the strategic level. I think on the tactical level, there's a okay. So the third quarter, right? Everybody's I'm so furious at this third quarter in which they score 0 points. It's 2 drives, guys. It's 2 drives, right? Like they basically drive the field on every single possession that they have, right? The entire second half is 4 possessions, one of which is garbage time, in which they drive the entire field and then kneel down. The second to last of which they drive the entire field and kick a touchdown, and it's 2 drives in the third quarter, one of which they convert a third down conversion, but then have a false start, and that they can't convert a 3rd and 15 on a screen pass. I want to talk about screen passes in a second. The first of which, so I don't love the screen passes at that point in the game. I think that 3rd and 15. I think it was pretty clear that their screen passes aren't working. I guess I'm talking about screen passes now. I did predict. Remember, my prediction in the game was that they were going to score 2 touchdowns on screen passes because the way that UCLA was defending screen passes, wasn't good. Apparently, both Will Stein and Akaka Malloy, UCLA's defensive coordinator, got that memo because Will Stein tried 9 different screen passes in this game, 10 if you want to count that Emery and Henry play, and they only succeeded on 4 of them because like UCLA had those on lock, like they really went after Oregon's screen game, and it's like I was kind of not wild by the number of screen passes, at that sort of at the later stage in the game. I was just like, we'll figure it out. Like they're blowing up these screens, and also at an execution level, guys, you need to figure out, you got a bunch of like tiny guys, and as blockers, like you're not executing these outside screens. Like just stop it. Just stop it for now. Just knock this off. And so, that 3rd and 15 on the second drive of the second half, where 3rd and 15, they go to a tunnel screen. I'm just like, come on, are you serious? Throw the ball down the field already. So I didn't love that. And I mean, like earlier on that drive on 1st and 10, they throw a bubble screen, which doesn't work. I'm just like, knock it off, Will. But so that that's sort of tactical play calling. I don't love. Number one is, at that point in the game, it was sort of clear, like, knock it off with the screens, Will. Tactical play calling gripe that I've got, number 2, is the first drive of the second half. It's a 3 and out. They run the ball, pretty successfully. It's a couple of, actually the first one is successful. The second one is less successful. Jay Toia just blows it up. Jay Toia was very successful in this game. They lined him up over Marcus Harper, and Marcus Harper had a hard time with him. It's not real surprising. He's an excellent defensive lineman. He was just, Marcus Harper's grades are okay in this game, but like, yeah, Toyu's win his snaps. So they're in 3rd and 3, and they're unbalanced to the field. And, UCLA's in man, they run a cover 1 blitz, they crowd the line. All of this is predicted in my preview article. Like, it's very clear what UCLA is going to do. And Stein has a Gabriel drop back to pass. And like his best option, it's unbalanced to the field. Everybody's releasing. His best option, having scrambled back into the end zone, is try to hit a crosser to Herbert, which is, not his best. The best thing he should have done, I think maybe what the play call might have called for, I don't know, but he should have just done it, was just a little, outside toss to the running back, because it's unbalanced to the field. All of UCLA's, it's man coverage, right? It's cover 1. Like, all of UCLA's pass defenders, have their backs to the play. They don't have enough, defenders to cover that. All he's got to do is run 3 yards. Like, it's just call a, zone toss play. Like, it's a walk-in conversion if he just calls a run. But instead, like, this is the thing, like, Stein's play calling frustrates me sometimes, because, like, he will often have an advantage running the ball that he doesn't want to press on 3rd down. Like, his play calling on 3rd down is like, it's a little too predictable in terms of passing, when he should just, like,
he needs a little crystal ball in him.
Yeah, and especially on that play call where it was just like, it was so obvious that they just needed to run to the field. They had all the signals that they needed. This was man coverage, and they, he could have walked to a conversion, like Aaron could have converted this 3rd down. Like,
dude, I've done crazier.
It's true. 3rd and long. Give it to Aaron.
I mean, it was 3rd and 3, man. Like, it would have been so easy to convert. Like, it was very, I thought the play call was very frustrating. Okay, so that's one play call, though. Like, that's the thing that's sort of like, to the extent that I've found Oregon fans who are like, freaking out. It's like, look, man, they drove the field like every, they crossed the 50-yard line on every drive except for one. Like, no one what you were complaining about is not having a 100% drive success rate, on a drive analysis basis. Like,
and if the game was,
get out of here, like, humans make mistakes. Like,
if Oregon needed to score 45 points in this game to win, they would have. Like, that's the other thing. The second half was a lot of like, we've got this lead. We know they don't have it. Let's not like bleed the clock, like, like true Big Ten style. But I think they're playing with that in mind, that they're like, and they still were scoring on so many drives or driving the length of the field. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And then on top of that, the defense has, UCLA completely on lockdown. Like, obviously, the first drive is scripted. It was kind of interesting. They went after, instead of going after Muhammad, they went after Reed a bit in this game. They go after Reed twice on the first drive, and then twice again on their final meaningful possession. Their second to last drive. They go after Reed, although that's the one that ends on the 4th down. It's either
Hakeem Johnson, Lewis, but fun interception.
Yeah, precisely. They go after Reed twice on that one. Muhammad, Muhammad has his guy totally locked down, and they basically never challenge him, which is somewhat interesting. It's not like Reed had a bad game; it's just they challenged him a lot, and if you get challenged a million times, like, eventually, you're gonna have a. Garbers is a good quarterback. Like, that's the thing about Garbers, is that, like, his. As we were talking about with Michael, like, Garbers is like, from a talent perspective, like, and the UCLA's wide receiver talent, like, it's a talented team that's just entirely let down by their offensive line, and that's what Oregon was blowing up. They were just, constantly.
Dude, Garbers playing like a champ out there, fucking with that limp going on. Like, goddamn, dude, you're playing like a champ.
Yeah, that had put a sour taste in my mouth too. I think for a lot of Duck fans, by the end, you felt a little bad for Garber.
Yeah, it definitely.
No,
did.
I felt great for him. Like, he's got a winner's mentality.
I sort of think maybe that's, to the extent this game got chippy, like I kind of think that's part of it is like UCLA is probably mad that Oregon's like injuring their quarterback, and it's sort of like
injuring everyone.
Look, man, he gets sacked that often. Like, what's Oregon supposed to do? Like, not sack him? Like, protect your quarterback? That's it's the quarterback getting gimpy because he's getting sacked all the time is different from laying dudes out on dirty hits. Like, these are not equivalent things. But like, I agree with you, Aaron. The dude, that dude's a champ, and to get back to the extent that UCLA moves the ball. It's they hit a couple of passing plays, and what I'm trying to say is that or they hit, I think, 2 explosive runs. And what I'm trying to say is that we always knew, and if you read my my preview article, you would know, like UC or my over the summer preview article, they always had the potential to be an explosive offense. Like everything about the team, Garber's the skill talent, getting rid of the Chip Kelly suppression field of goofiness. Like everything about UCLA's offense was that this could have been, one of the best offenses in the Big Ten. It's just completely betrayed by having just the absolute, no joke, worst offensive line in the Big Ten. And so therefore you get to constantly blow them up and short circuit everything, but on the occasional play in which either they get it off quick, in which I do think it's one of the things we talked about with Michael is the possibility that they rejigger the offense and try to work in more quick passes, which I think we saw a bit of in this game. Or just, hey, they fortunately held up for the extra second that they needed to get the pass off. Yeah, on those few situations, hey, they can break a play because they always had that ability. It's, am I making sense?
That makes perfect sense.
They were always
the fastest car in Eugene if it had wheels, basically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly, baby.
It's like this was always a firework. And it's just you always had to throw it in the bucket of water, and on the one play you miss the bucket of water, it explodes, And
I think a lot of Duck fans are kind of, if you leave this game only upset, I think you're doing a disservice to the defense, who's playing at gelling really, really quickly. Like for the offense, the Oregon offense, those first 2 weeks did feel like a lot more it almost felt like a week 0 thing for the offensive line. For the offense, because of the shuffling of the offensive line and just trying to get into it. And now it feels like they're starting to build chemistry, obviously, a lot less pressure and stuff from these teams. But the defense has felt pretty locked on since week 1, outside of a few, displays.
Yeah, absolutely monster game for a couple of guys who had
Bryce
not
Betcher
yet had monster game. Yeah, Bryce Betcher, sure, he gets the pick. But a couple of guys, just because they're often, obscured, but I want to shout out because they really popped on the tally sheet.
Wait, real quick.
Okay.
I just want to hit you with a quick question because I might be misremembering. Was it last week that you mentioned you wanted to pay attention to our secondary because that was going to be some kind of a truth-telling thing?
I probably say that every week, but I mentioned the thing that I wanted to, that the shift from teams. It was very interesting that Muhammad basically didn't get challenged at all in this game, and instead they were going after Reed. The other interesting thing was Kobe Savage had a number of really good plays. He'd basically not been involved at all in their previous several games because basically the opponents were not capable of getting, because Savage plays far enough back in the defense, just where his position is on the field, that he would never be involved in the play.
The offense didn't have time to get the ball.
Yeah, exactly. And because UCLA was sort of a different animal, like they were trying to get the ball, deeper, he would have to go do stuff. And when he was called upon to go do stuff, he did stuff. Like this was the game in which he was the most active, and he has a lot of good plays. But the defense, this was about the defensive line at OLBs. Like, Tuioti and Winston. Previously, there was the split between Tuioti and Winston was much more favorable for Tuioti. Like Winston was playing much less. This is much more even. We saw a lot more 32, so I liked that. I was worried that there was something up with Winston, but not in this game. It was definitely very even between Tuioti and Winston. They were getting very even. Monster performance for Harmon and Caldwell. In the middle, monster performance for Birch. And then really liked seeing as much as I did at 52. Washington, for a young player, he was getting that much, time. We didn't see the garbage time that we wanted to, but he's not playing. He's not a garbage time player. Like he's getting, really active reps. And then, as expected to, we saw a ton out of, Uyunglele, who's really, all over the field as a weak side backer.
Pretty fun stuff. I feel like a lot of Duck fans are just still somehow in the mentality of just like we're an only offensive team. It's like sometimes it's the best thing to rely on your defense, and it can be really fun, especially if
I feel like already sometimes this season we're a defense only team.
There's been times when we've called upon them so much. Like
that's why. So that's the only reason why I almost wanted to be hot about this game, was that I was really expecting to have kind of a weekend getaway.
It was pretty lopsided.
Not all the players would have to work super hard, and there wouldn't be any close calls or concussions.
You probably would have seen that if
just
they scored that touchdown at the end of the second half. It's
or if it was a field goal instead of a touchdown.
Yeah, I know. Like if they had just scored that drive, it's probably the entire complexion of the second half is different. Like it's hard to overstate how much it's a single, because like that's how football is, man.
Yeah,
it's just a single play has such a high leverage event, and that is I literally cannot imagine a higher leverage play than that one. Like it's crazy, and it still didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. Like it only matters to the emotions of Oregon fans, which obviously Oregon fans are inclined to panic and be emotional over a 21-point win, which is never in doubt, and which had a post-game win expectancy of 100%. Like,
they should just watch the end of the game when all of the players are out there smiling and talking to each other, and the ones that maybe have a bad attitude have left. Because I felt at the end of it, I was like, you know what? I see an actual some of these players actually really like each other, and they are on different teams.
And some of them got cut from the Oregon Ducks, and they're a little pissed about it. No, but
you better. Sorry.
I just got a message from Tristan that he fixed the table error in his article. It happened live on the podcast.
Ooh, so too late, listeners. Unless you saw it,
you missed it by that much.
This is another game that goes in the file of a game I never really want to think about or see a highlight of or think more of than just looking at that final score. I'm feeling more and more confident that that we're getting away from like the week 1, week 2 offensive line woes, which feels like everything's on the table. Then if you give Dylan Gabriel time, he's looking pretty good. And
the cumulative error rate in this game for the offensive line is 10.83, which means you're hitting the Oregon standard. The only real sore spot is basically wherever Jay Toya is lining up in the run game. Guys had trouble, whether that was over. They actually didn't have him going over Struther at all. Like we have basically no data of Toya over Struther. I don't know why they were doing it that way. But yeah, like if he was if he was attacking Lalaulu had a bit of difficulty with him. If he was attacking Harper, he had a bit of difficulty with him. But like, overall in the run game, I mean, Oregon ran the ball on designed runs, 23 times and succeeded 17 times. I mean, they had a 77% rush success rate.
Yeah.
They didn't break a ton of super explosive, runs, but like that's if you read my preview article, UCLA just doesn't give those up. It's just the way they play their safeties. UCLA just never does. Like, I mean, going back like 10 years, I've got like 10 years of charting data on UCLA. They don't give up explosive runs because of the athleticism in their secondaries. Like they come down, they like the front will give up like up to 9 yards, and then the safety shows up, and it's just like, that's what happens when you play like athletic, secondaries is they show up and they stop the run from going explosives. Like boohoo, it means you march the field, which I think was part of the game plan, like that's why I say that, like, I understood it while I was watching it, that the game plan was like efficiency, trick play. And let's see if this trick play will work. So like, that's why, we saw the double pass, we saw the Emery and Henry stuff. That's why I think we saw as many screenplays as we did, right? Like I predicted that we would see a bunch of screenplays, and it's just that UCLA sort of predicted the same thing, like they right, because screenplays are how you exploit that. It's how you exploit like an aggressive defense that's clustered in the middle of the field. It's just the safeties were flying down and attacking that. Now, I think that Oregon probably should have adjusted and made the second move on that, which is attack the middle of, over the middle of the field, and just had like Gabriel stay in the middle of the pocket and throw some post routes to Evan Stewart. Like I am, if I have some criticism, I do think that, like, hey, in the second half, Will, could you figure that one out? Take the screens out, or draw something up that looks like a screen, but then, have Evan Stewart run to the middle of the field and exploit the fact that the safeties are now run down trying to stop a screen, but he doesn't do that. He just throws more screens. And I'm like, Will,
I hate to be this
on
guy
a tactical level,
because there's too many times I hear someone, when their team trots out a bad offense, the go-to will be like, well, we just didn't want to show it on film and like, I don't want to be that guy, but hey, maybe it is a thing where he's just like, we're gonna win even if I just put out some leftovers. Sounds easy. Let's just keep doing this thing.
What soundbite? The soundbite that goes through my head the most often is, and especially in this game with the way Hythloday was speaking about it, is just want to protect our players.
Yeah.
So there's getting these plays done quickly. Like, let's just get a screen pass. If it gains anything, then cool, that's great. But like, if it doesn't do anything, it's over really quick because these guys are playing like assholes.
Less likely, honestly, because it's out of your hand. Like, it's most likely going to be a easy completion. It's not a deep pass. It's less likely to get picked off, certainly. So
right,
I think that's all possible.
But yeah, I always love that. I always love it when they come out with that soundbite and they're just like, just really wanted to make sure our players were safe out there, protect the players. That's the main focus.
Ain't no safety in football.
I mean,
Oregon UCLA, a game we will hopefully never remember and always forget from henceforth. Let's talk about the future, though. I'm done talking about the past. That is right. Let's talk about, well, not the best teams, because the best teams are the Oregon Ducks, and that's it, actually. The best team, full stop. Let's talk about those other teams. Let's talk about, if the Ducks are number one, which they always are, and if the Huskies are the absolute worst in the Big Ten, which they absolutely are, they are number 18, and we're called the Quack 12, then all the other teams, well, those got to be the bottom 11 in my regard. So let's talk about them. That is right, the bottom 11.
Bottom 11.
Bottom 11.
Jeez.
Here we are.
What's happening?
As I said, number one, Oregon at the very top. Huskies.
Boo!
Which, normally this is just me saying, yeah, I hate the Huskies. We're a Duck podcast. Boo, they suck. we'll see. Maybe they are the worst team in this conference. I mean, people are giving them a run for their money. UCLA,
Really?
Northwestern, Purdue. But they are in the cellar with them. They're probably better than all three of those teams, but maybe not. Maybe we'll find out. So, yeah. But let's get into, these are all the teams. I got them all here. This is my power rankings. I'll run through them really quick for the people not watching us on YouTube, the Quack 12 YouTube page. I've got a top tier here. The top tier out of all these garbage teams. Well, I'm putting, just because I'll probably never be able to do this ever again, I'm putting Rutgers in that top spot because they're undefeated. They beat the Washington Huskies in embarrassing fashion. I'll run through all this, and then we can actually talk about the games that took place. But I'm just telling you right now, I got Rutgers on the top. Ohio State, obviously, it's either us or them is the best in this conference. We'll find out who. But Ohio State's still undefeated, still just
smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, we'll hope so. Then we got Indiana. Indiana undefeated. You got to reward them. The 9-win Indiana is still out there, so I'm putting up there. And then on the bottom of that top tier, I'm throwing Penn State. Penn State, because they've been like the least impressive quality team in the Big Ten. Then I'm just going to read really quickly the bottom here. I got on my bottom tier is teams like Michigan State. Michigan State got absolutely blown out by Ohio State. Minnesota, once again, they lose. Not an embarrassing fact. I mean, it actually made Michigan look a little more embarrassing than anything else. We'll get into it. But then I got Wisconsin, who lost to USC, had a lead, but then blew it. Northwestern, I believe they were on a bye, but they're still very, very bad. But I got them ahead.
They didn't win.
They didn't win. They didn't lose, but they didn't win. I got them ahead of Purdue. Purdue actually gave Nebraska what for a bit, but they lost 28-10. And UCLA, I put them at the very bottom because, well, yeah, they were
like
cheap.
We said, they have bad attitude.
Yeah, bad attitude. So I'm putting them in the corner. And then I don't know. There's a bunch of teams that are better than mediocre, but mediocre in this ranking: Michigan, USC, Nebraska, Illinois, Maryland, Iowa. You can put them in any sleeping order.
I wish Maryland was further up. You need to come to me and come with me as we enjoy and celebrate with our East Coast brothers.
The amount of times you've asked me to come with you, I can't even count on one hand. Which bothers me. I mean, let's get into number one, Rutgers. Because they're my favorite. Right. They played with Washington Huskies and they beat them 21-18. It was actually another wonderful Friday slate of games because at the same time was Virginia Tech taking on Miami. This is a top 10 Miami. Really, like Cam Ward is leading them. That game ended up being crazy. Ended up on a Hail Mary that had to be reviewed for like 10 minutes.
Wow.
Miami barely wins, but hey, and I believe Rutgers beat Virginia Tech too. So that's a quality win there now. Maybe not really, but something there. They beat Washington.
And Rutgers beat Miami in the bowl game at the end of last year. It was like all four of these teams is like a weird.
There you go. So Rutgers is the absolute class of the conference. I'm joking, obviously, but this is a solid team compared to all the Rutgers of the past. Do you have anything to say about that glorious game, the 21-18 victory over Washington, other than Washington looks pretty bad?
I mean, they don't actually look very bad. I mean, they outplayed Rutgers in every way, except like they outgained them. Like their passing efficiency and rushing efficiency was much better than Rutgers were, meaning, they beat them both on offense and defense from a per play efficiency basis. Like the post game win expectancy is way better for Washington. They're the worst team of the week in terms of like the worst beat, of the week. Like it all came down to like they were
both their run and pass, was over 8 yards per play, which is like bonkers. And yet they converted only 2 of 10 third downs, which is like how you can be, how you can be going 8 yards of play no matter what you select and only convert 2 of your third downs is insane.
And they were missing kicks like left and right.
Yeah, they kept missing kicks. They couldn't convert in the red zone. Like they couldn't convert third downs. They couldn't convert touchdowns. They couldn't kick field goals. And yet again, they kept committing penalties. That was a big reason why they kept failing on third downs. Is like their third downs were like 3rd and 15. So they'd get 8 yards and it wasn't enough. It wasn't 3rd and 2 the way it should be. So like, yeah, I mean, it's like all this stuff that it's like tradition, the kind of statistical analysis that I'm used to doing, or even advanced statistical analysis, like fails when all the other ephemerals, and they don't even turn the ball over. That's the other thing. Like usually when you have a team that's like massively outgains, the other team's like, oh, it must have been, but they still lost. Oh, it must have been, like turnovers or special teams. I guess, kicked it does count as a special team snafu, but I mean like returned, a punt return, touchdowns or they muffed a punt or something. No, it's nothing like that. Like none of those. In fact, I think they won the turnover battle. If I don't, no, they've never, it's like they've had 2 turnovers all year, and yet they're 3-2.
There's just nothing less threatening than Washington in the red zone. It's you're safe as can be.
It's just like they keep committing penalties, and they make bad decisions on third downs and in the red zone, and they don't have a reliable kicker. So it's like all their high leverage moments they just whiff at.
And we love them for it. Rutgers gets the win. Hell yeah, Washington loses. And
the thing is, these have been their easy games. They're like they kind of have a soft slate. Like one of the reasons, looking at their roster, it was like, oh man, this is a team that if they had a normal, slate, they'd only win like 4 games, but like, but they're still going to go to a bowl because, they have such a soft slate. Well, that was contingent on winning games against like Wazoo and Rutgers, which they've lost, I think a lot of their like statistically, they're like a top 20 team on offense and defense. Well, that's because they played like Eastern Michigan and Weber State and Rutgers and Wazoo and Northwestern. Like they just played like the 5 softest teams on their schedule. Like it gets harder from here, guys. They got to play Michigan. You really think your offense is going to put up 500 yards of offense on Michigan's defense, or you got to play Iowa later in the year. You got to play Oregon at the end of the year. I forget what the rest of their schedule is. Like it gets harder than Eastern Michigan and Weber State and Rutgers. You needed to convert those wins,
Nope, but they didn't. Ohio State at Michigan State. They beat them 38-7. I watched 0 seconds of this game, even though we're about to play Michigan State, because there's other shit on, and I don't really care. 38-7. Obviously, it's a beatdown. Did we learn anything from these teams that we did not know already?
This was by far the most instructive game that either of these teams have played. What are you kidding? I watched the hell out of this game.
I want to know about weaknesses from either. That's all I care about. Really.
It looks like a beatdown because of the final score. It was really just Ohio State pulled away. At the end, it was relatively tight.
There's a bunch of those actually this week.
Yeah, Will Howard is simultaneously he's throwing the ball better in terms of like he was kind of a short passer and kind of inaccurate at Kansas State. He's been better than that at Ohio State in that regard. Like he gets a little higher marks so far. on that question. On the other hand, he's made some bad decisions. Like he's thrown more interceptions than he should have. Like his interception per pass rate is higher than it should be, given the opponents and the talent around him and the level of pass protection that he's getting. And it should be higher. He's tried to throw picks that have just been not, picked off. I mean, there were 2 in this game that should have been picked off that Michigan State just dropped it. And there's a lot of stuff about like Michigan State's defense in this game where I'm just like, this is not a hard play to defend. Why did you lose your mind? There's going to be clips in my article of it where it's just like, this is a basic mesh sit. Like, how do you not know how to defend this? Or Michigan, like, I don't know, like there's this Big Ten phenomenon where every team, when they play Ohio State, like they kind of shit themselves where they're like, we're playing Ohio State. We gotta, oh my God, man. And so it's like they don't like play their receivers, they play all their receivers like 12 yards off. And so like every receiver, just like if they want, they just have a 12-yard pass for the asking. And it's like, okay,
like pretend like you should be there. I get what you mean. Like act like you should be there. That's sort of my advice for a lot of teams when they play, Ohio State. A lot of that's sort of a confounding factor. And then for Michigan State, like it's kind of Michigan State we didn't learn anything about because they're exactly the team that we saw in all their previous games, which is that like they have nothing going on unless Aiden Childs is slinging the ball. And then when he's slinging the ball, and he's a freshman. Yeah.
He's a jukebox. Like, I mean, maybe it's a hit or maybe it's garbage. Like,
Yeah. Michigan State, Ohio State. There you go. Now, Illinois, Penn State. This one was a heartbreaker for Illinois fan. Cause I mean, a 5-0 Illinois team that had beaten Penn State at Beaver Stadium, that would be amazing. And this game was close. They scored on the first drive, an 11-play, 75-yard drive, take a 7-0 lead. Penn State responds, so it's 7-7. It's 7-7 at the half after missed field goals from both teams. Wouldn't be the last either. Yeah. And like the final score is 21-7, but like you could look in the fourth quarter, it was 14-7. Like they were like midfield. Altmaier throws a pick and that kind of seals it because then Penn State scores a touchdown. This felt like that kind of thing where you're like, sometimes the quarterbacks that get so much praise in conferences, there's kind of a condescending level to it where you're like there's so much praise for like Altmaier, and it's because it's like people know he's not like an actual elite QB. So it's amazing that he's able to like gut these out and like lead this team and like win it. And like he is good, but it's just like he's not great. And, and Illinois does get lucky. But
it's
I
like
love him.
Scratching the belly of the cute dog. It's like, well, you're gonna
It's like yeah.
Aren't you special? You did so good. You did so good.
It is a little bit and so this may be like, I mean, hey, Illinois it's still cool that they're doing as well as they are. Still like pretty dang good, but not enough to beat Penn State, which is annoying because Penn State throughout this whole season has been very gettable. But then there's just the teams that they've been going against have just come a bit short. But Penn State, anyone who's watching these games, even if you're just looking at the scores, they're clearly, someone can get them. Someone can get them.
They're riding that razor's edge.
Just not Illinois.
This is a game that this is sort of like Washington Rutgers, the sequel. In that, except the team that was outplaying them won. It was like Empire Strikes Back, I guess. where Penn State's just massively outplaying Illinois, but they're not punching in touchdowns. And part of it too is that it's a super low possession game. Like Penn State only has 3 possessions in the first half. Like I don't even know how that's possible. How you only get 3 possessions in a first half, and they don't score on 2 of them. It's like they drive the field on a touchdown. Opening drive on a touchdown, and it's like that's how I expected you to play. And then it's like 6-play punt that takes almost 4 minutes off the clock, and then it's a 13-play, takes 6 minutes off the clock, and then they miss the field goal at the end. It's just like,
yeah.
And then they open the second half where like it's like 3 and out where they take a sack, and then I think like Illinois muffs the kick. I don't know. Something happens. And then they go on a touchdown drive and they're like, okay, fine, it's 14. And then it's like it's a long drive and then they turn it over on downs. And then it's another long drive and they miss the field goal. So it's like they repeat the beginning of the first half again. And then they're like, okay, fine, we'll have a touchdown drive, that ends the game. So it's like it's a combination of them like 4 empty possessions or 5 empty possessions in which they're moving the ball on like 4 of them, but then they just like don't score. And then just like slow pace of play. But at no point is Illinois ever a threat. So it's it's okay. Like other than Illinois' opening, possession, and then like the one at the end of the half in which they miss a field goal, like Illinois is never moving the ball because of exactly what I said last week, which is their offensive line just could not, like Penn State destroyed them in the pass rush. I mean, it was like 1 million sacks and
This is like a game where it's like maybe if they could have gotten a pick 6 and this could have been one of those crazy things, but they needed something miraculous.
But I mean, like this is sort of like it's like the game's never in doubt because Illinois is never going to move the ball on Penn State's defense, and so they just sort of put them in a vice and squeeze them. But the game like looks closer than it is because Penn State just keeps having empty possessions. Like 4 out of they don't have enough possessions because they're not moving the ball because they're not like moving the ball very quickly, which is like a James Franklin thing, which I'm like I don't like that. And second, and it's sort of it reminds me of like Bill Musgrave at Cal, where the dude would like. It's like long, slow possessions that end in a missed field goal. Like, could you just shoot me? Like, I don't want to watch this.
Still, like top 20 matchup that Illinois was part of. That's pretty cool. There you go. Minnesota at number 12, Michigan. This was I was watching the first half and then I was like, this is boring. Michigan's just beating their brains in. Not even necessarily beating their brains. It was more like Minnesota does not look like they will be able to capitalize on the opportunities that Michigan's giving them. So I just assume this is going to be like Michigan is just slowly going to crush them to death. And then the final score will be like 27-3 or something like that. That's basically what happened, except in the second half, Minnesota did start getting some things going. And the score ended up being 27-24. Like there is a world in which Minnesota could have maybe actually done this because there was such a conservative and bad performance from Michigan in the second half, which really seems to be like I could totally see Michigan making the Big Ten conference game. That is like a possibility. It would involve a lot of luck for them because it's like they have a handful of things that they do well. Like on defense, they're still doing, like they still have some formidable talent, and they can run the ball. Like they're trying to run the ball. That they can do. Passing out of the question. Like they don't seem that different from Iowa to me, and I've got no respect for Iowa.
Oh yeah, that's what I've been calling them all year is Super Iowa.
They are Super Iowa. I think that is the perfect way to put it. In mentality, in what they're not capable in doing, it is basically it's Iowa. And it almost it made this game close because they can't just be like, okay, let's get this out. Like let's put this away. Yeah. Any promise for Minnesota that you saw in this game? Because I'm pretty down on Minnesota too this year.
Oh no, I'm super down on Minnesota. It's just like, yeah, you're right. They have like 3 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, which is kind of surprising. One of them's on a short field because of a muffed punt.
Hell yeah.
Or something happens. I forget what exactly, but they only have to go like 17 yards to get the one in the middle. But it's like, I think Michigan's sort of like, okay, so it's 3-24 going into the fourth quarter. They give up a long touchdown drive, which really comes down to they basically have them stopped to where they're going to kick a field goal, but then Graham commits a fourth down. Like they're going to kick a field goal. They decide not to because it's going to be a long field goal. So they go for it on 4th and 11. They have them stopped. Like it's an incomplete pass. Like Michigan's off the field and it's going to be game over. And then Graham commits a personal foul. And it's like, oh my God. So they get 15 yards and a first down. And so then they score a touchdown. And it's like, if the refs don't throw the flag on that one, I'm not saying the refs are wrong to throw the flag, but it's just like, it's like it all comes down to that. Okay, so then they get a short field, and then they give up another.
And the short field was a long punt return.
It was a long punt return. Thanks. Mm-hmm. So, and then it's like the last one is sort of the one that's sort of like, I don't know, concerning if you want to say something is concerning or promising if you want to say something is promising for Minnesota is the last one in which they make the score 24-27. But you have to remember there's only 4 minutes left in the game at that point. Like, when I wind up charting this game, I'm probably going to need to get a feel for it when I watch this one, but I'm probably going to wind up excluding that drive as garbage time. Like I need to get a better feel for this from charting it. But I think probably when Michigan responds, so when the score becomes 17-24 and Michigan responds by going on a long clock-eating drive, like it takes 6:32 off the clock, that goes 14 plays, and they kick a field goal to make it a 27-17, aka a 2-score lead with like 4.5 on the clock. Like technically it's the case that Minnesota can win the game still, if they score and get an onside kick and score again, they can win the game, but like, it's not going to happen. So I think I'm going to wind up excluding that final touchdown drive for Minnesota as garbage time. And probably because Michigan is going to play it in, I have to watch the tape again, but I think Michigan's probably playing that as sort of like in a bend but don't break mode, like force them to like allow them to score, but or if you allow them to score, but don't allow them to score quickly, like make them eat a bunch of clocks, and in that sense, it's non-representative play. And so therefore, to finally answer your question, Adam, like, is this a glimmer of hope? For Minnesota, I would say it's qualified, because I don't really think that I think that's probably non-representative play. And it's just, if you want to look for, what is a takeaway from this that's really a solid takeaway, it's what we already knew, which is Michigan's defense remains really good. Their offense is not so good, but it's good enough to beat up on, what's a bad Minnesota team. And the lifelong, always true general lesson, which is put teams away. Do not let a team hang around in the fourth quarter. Don't throw a pick. That's what happens, is that they throw a pick, at the end of the third quarter. instead of putting their foot on the gas and going up 31-3 and just like totally taking the air out of the balloon, they throw a pick and Minnesota sort of feels it and they go on a touchdown drive. Like put teams away. That's the lesson.
Put teams away. Like USC, eventually put away Wisconsin. This is after Wisconsin actually really gave him what for. Like Wisconsin came out. It was more like USC shot themselves in the foot enough time for Wisconsin to really rack up a 21-10 halftime lead. This is due to things like a fumble at the Wisconsin 22 by I believe it was a sack on Miller Moss and he drops it. There's also an interception from Miller Moss. But Miller Moss also had some pretty key plays. Like he had this crazy diving, twirling, spinning touchdown. That was pretty fun. Overall, he finishes 30-45 for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, interception, and a fumble. USC, I still feel like things are looking better for them, though this is still a team where it's like, it's still the same problems, but the problems are getting less and less. But it may hold them back from like making the Big Ten championship or something. But they beat a pretty rough Wisconsin team. That's what you want to see. They survived the kick in the teeth in the first half, and they ended up winning this 38-21. That's all I got to say. At USC in the Coliseum. With plenty of open seats. If you wanted to see this game, anyone could have walked in. I don't even know if there's security. Yeah.
I think the thing that needs to be noted about this game is just how many like wacky punts there were in this game. Like,
there's great punters. A punter that was supposed to be for USC, apparently, like Wisconsin's punter was gonna be USC's punter, I heard, and then Wisconsin nabbed him because he got injured or something like that.
Like there's muffed punts, there's long punt returns, there's punts that pin the team's back at the 1 yard line. Like there's a lot about this game that's affected by where the ball winds up as a result of punting. And basically, if you need visualization software to help you with this, but basically if you control for field position effects as a result of wacky punting, Wisconsin accomplishes nothing without the assistance of punting. Like USC has them completely controlled, but if you sort of give Wisconsin like some hope because you assist them with the punt game. USC's short field defense is terrible. Like the USC's defense only operates if they have like 75 yards to defend. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so. On the other hand, or on the other side of the ball, exactly what I said at the beginning of the year about both of these teams are in the offseason, that Wisconsin's defense is a mirage. Like last year, I think they ranked 16th in F+, and or 20th or something like that. And I was like, the two prior years in 21 and 22, I thought they earned it. Like I thought they were actually really good defenses, but then 23 F+ continued to rank them very highly, and I was like, I charted that team that it's a mirage. It's because they're playing the Big Ten West. They're nowhere near as good as their ranking. Like they have significant problems. They took step backs in a lot of ways on their defense. I don't think they're good. And I think when the Big Ten West bubble goes burst and they got to play teams that can actually play offense like USC, they're going to get wrecked. Conversely, USC, I think they've got some problems. I think they're going to have efficiency issues, but there's going to be a lot of teams that do not have the defensive backs to keep up with their face-melting wide receivers. And that was the show of this game, was USC's wide receivers are a problem for Big Ten defenses.
Lane had a really good game,
those, yeah, and Jacoby Lane had a fantastic game. But more than him too, Deuce Robinson probably played his best game
Yeah.
as a Trojan. Like undefendable. Like the USC has players that a lot of Big Ten teams, Wisconsin included, but Wisconsin is far from the only one, where it's like those farm boys are not capable of keeping up or having the athleticism, the short area quickness, the ability to reverse direction. They cannot keep up. And USC is going to play more games like this.
Well, and even against Michigan, where USC's like O-line was especially getting like shown to be not at that level, the reason why that USC was able to rally back is because he would barely, miraculously be able to make a downfield pass or like make it, or like a quick one would go off and the receivers would. So it's very clearly, like, that is the strength, which is.
And by the way, this was, just briefly, like this was also something that I thought UCLA, would be able to make some noise about if they're, and I mean, USC's offensive line is barely better than UCLA's, but that's the difference, is that USC's is just, that's all they needed to be, was just a little bit better to give, Miller Moss just, half a second more. And it's just that UCLA's it turns out to be so much past the red line that they can't get anything done. And USC's is just like, it's just a little above the red line, so that you need to be a team like Michigan that completely wrecks them, so that USC has to go like 4 3 and outs to start the game, so that Michigan gets to win by 3, versus Wisconsin, which is not good enough to do that. And therefore, they get melted and they lose by 17.
Yeah. Let's talk about a bit of an anomaly. Usually when you lose the turnover battle 4-0, you're typically going to lose that game, or at least it will be close in score, like bare minimum. Instead, you have Indiana losing that battle 4-0, yet winning 42-28. That tells me they were significantly better than Maryland, though Maryland, due to those turnovers, due to Indiana having a pretty bad offensive first half, were able to make it a close game in that third quarter. Like, it was 21-21, even as late as like 5 minutes left in the third. But then Indiana got their head out of their butt and really started, doing what they do.
Playing
probably
football?
a good, playing football. Probably a good game for Indiana overall, but 4 turnovers. That's certainly eye-opening, but maybe just what they needed. And certainly we're way better than Maryland. Like, even if it was just in the second half.
The most telling thing was that I don't think Maryland got any points off of any of the turnovers. I think it was all
amazing.
I think all 4 of them, it was 3 and out and a punt, immediately following the turnover.
That is true. I'm looking at it right now.
That's very deflating.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, very deflating,
would
and also
bum me out, man.
So I mean, the turnover is bad for the half of the turnover that is just your possession ended earlier than you wanted it to, but it's not the other half of it, which is your opponent gets a short field and an easy score.
Yeah, true. Like, Maryland. I'm sorry to say this, Aaron, but Maryland may not be making it to the Big Ten championship game.
Hey, and that's fine.
Okay.
There was a time when we weren't super hot either. And
True.
You know what? That doesn't mean I love them less. I do need to look at the town, though. I need to look at pictures of the town, because I did start realizing if it doesn't look like how I envisioned it in my head, maybe I hate them.
Fair
I have
enough.
a very specific vision in my head of what this town looks like.
Well, their over of 6.5 is looking less and less likely. I'll tell you that much.
The game. There's one other thing, which is the Indiana fumbles in the fourth quarter. they're up 35-21 at that point. So, 14-point lead. Basically, up until that point, Maryland does. While Maryland doesn't score off of the turnovers, they do, to their credit, get 3 long touchdown drives. Two of them, they drive the field. One of them, it's like a single play. Hemby just gets behind the defense and he runs for 75 yards. But they're all full field drives. So it's 31-25. Indiana fumbles. Maryland, then this is basically the game ender. They go for it on 4th and 7. Like, they're stopped on 3rd and 17. There's a face mask, so they're backed up on 3rd and 17. They miss it, then they go for it on 4th and 17. That's the game ender. They don't get it, and it's a short field. Indiana punches it in. 2 plays later, the game's over at that point. There's then a bunch of garbage time nonsense, including a score for Maryland, but like the game's over at that point. I just wanted to register that the score is not even as close as it looks. Like, there's a bunch of garbage nonsense, but there is a very clear demarcation where like Maryland declares they go for it on 4th and 17. You don't go for it on 4th and 17 if you think that the game is still a reasonable game.
Speaking of misleading scores here, I think this 28-10 Nebraska Purdue score is a little misleading. Purely not that Purdue was in it, almost ready to win it per se, because Purdue's not that kind of team. They're not that kind of team that like wins games, But
dang,
Nebraska,
speak truth to power, baby.
like, this isn't as good of a win as 28-10 kind of indicates, I think, because at half it was 0-0.
Yeah, it was just gross. Although it's a bunch of missed field goals.
Yeah, it really was. There's been a lot of missed field goals this weekend, but this one there was 1, 2, 3, 4 in the first half. 4 missed field goals.
Well, yeah, but also I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 punts. Yeah, 7 punts and 4.
Yeah,
no
one wants that.
Yeah.
Against Purdue, like, I think Nebraska's having some troubles on offense, and looking at when they needed it most against Illinois, it fell short. You could have easily I don't know. It was a rough one. I don't really have anything to say about this. Purdue is bad. Nebraska.
Well, there is one thing to say, which is that Purdue fired Graham Harrell after this.
Yeah,
game.
That's right.
Dang.
Basically, Purdue finally scores in garbage time, like at the very end of the game. Effectively, that during meaningful play, during meaningful play, they only have 2 drives in which they move the ball at all. One, they miss a field goal. The other, it's the first drive of the 3rd quarter where they make the field goal. It's basically Purdue's offense is just complete and total trash.
Yeah.
And then Nebraska, they go from having basically a trash offense, which is, I don't really think Purdue's defense is very good. I agree with you that it's more about Nebraska's offense was just playing, very poorly. Mm-hmm. To then in the second half, they then reel off 3 straight, touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding. It's
pick 6 too, touchdown. I believe, right? Yeah.
No, I don't think they have a pick 6.
Isn't that crazy? Oh,
well. They have one at the end of the game, but that's their final touchdown. They go. It's the start of the 3rd quarter. They have 0 points, and then it's full field touchdown drive for 7, full field touchdown drive for 14, full field touchdown drive for 21. At that point, it's 21-3. The game's over at 21-3. Purdue is not scoring, 18 points in the next in the final 6 minutes of the game. The game's over.
Yeah.
And not only are they not going to score 18 points, they then throw a pick 6. So it's like the game's really over, but yeah.
I think not having an entire bad first half against Purdue doesn't, at this time of the year, doesn't bode great things for your tougher games. Let's get in. now that we've talked about all these garbage teams, let's get into.
Well, no, hold on.
Woo.
I still think it's up in the air about what Nebraska's offense is, because it's a true freshman quarterback, and we knew that he was going to have freshmen. So this could just be, oh man, freshman stuff. And I do think that Walters is a good defensive coordinator, and it could be that, that he was doing freshman, stuff in the first half. They figured it out. Walters was doing stuff that had Raiola really confused, and then they sort of figured it out, and he had a good second half. It could be that Nebraska's offense is, was just being sort of tripped up by the freshman factor, and on the other hand, what was the thing that we were worried about? Remember what I was talking about in the when Nebraska got upset by Illinois, and I was like, if you need to sell stock in Nebraska, sell stock in their defense, because I was real worried that their defense, which I thought was one of the real defenses in the Big Ten, maybe is not for real. Mm-hmm. Well, shoot, man. I mean, they basically completely shut down Purdue, but then you're supposed to completely shut down Purdue. So I don't so you just said, I think we can say some conclusive things about Nebraska. And I'm like, no, I don't think you can, on offense or defense. I don't think you can say conclusive things about them. You can't say conclusive things about the defense, because they did what you're supposed to do against Purdue. And on offense, they had a bad half and a good half. So I don't know.
Well, I said what I said. Right. They're going against Rutgers.
Stick to your guns, baby.
Indiana. Yeah, might as well. What do I got to lose? Well, now's the time to do it, too, because we got the picks. The picks. That is right. We are here to pick the big bottom, and let's see what happens. Well, let's start off with the first game on the slate, which is number 6. Ooh. That's right. We went up. Number 6, Oregon, versus that very same Michigan State, who barely managed to score but one touchdown against Ohio State.
But one touchdown.
I'll tell you, if this game is close or if it looks bad on the Duck side, the whole narrative, whether it's warranted or not, coming up to the Oregon-Ohio State game will be, well, look what these two teams did to a similar, the same opponent. X is going to happen now because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron,
maybe this is the game that maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe this is the 77-0 game.
Whew. I'd love it. For
77-6.
Vernon Adams Jr. Yeah, 77-6. You're calling it out, so this isn't just.
I guess so. I guess so.
I'd have to join you. I'd have to join you in that. I think this game will be. I mean, not in the ugliness wise of it, but score wise and feel wise. I think it's going to feel a lot like the UCLA game, in which we have a really good first half and a good enough first half. Maybe not where Dylan Gabriel's not playing in the second or anything, but a big enough where the priority for the second half will be, let's kill this thing. Let's stay healthy for Ohio State. Let's just get out of here. We're at home. Because we're at home, maybe I'd throw another touchdown on the score for the Ducks for the UCLA. But
42-7.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of think it'll be 42-7, maybe 42-14, maybe.
Sure. Wow, you give them 14 points because why? We're just being soft. It's the second half. Who gives a shit? We'll let them.
Yeah, I think they score one in the first and one late in the game. Yeah,
gotcha.
I hope so. I certainly don't want a crazy game, but I don't think Michigan State is a defense that'll really give us enough fits to keep this close. And I think everyone's going to have a good game.
There's other forces at play here.
And we're in Austin. So, yeah. Hith, who do you got in this one?
Well, Oregon should win. I wouldn't take the points because,
you
God hates the Ducks. And the backdoor cover, Childs is, that's what Michigan State's got going on. Is that, their offensive efficiency for the run and the pass is very poor. It's 40% win rate. for both the run and the pass. But like the one thing Childs can do is he's got the biggest arm in the Big Ten. So like out of nowhere he'll hit a 70-yard pass. It's like it's going to be like playing Boise State with Jonty, where like
who's looking like a Heisman every day.
Yeah, it's sort of like I mean, like if you check in on Boise State this year, where every single game he's played, he's broken off a 70-yard touchdown run.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, no. So it's like
they're gonna get theirs, but maybe not break the game open.
Feel so bad that Jonty broke off a 70-yard touchdown run against you. Like he does that every game. Like, hey, Childs is gonna hit that. Like he's gonna hit one. Because it's like it's the only thing they do. Like if Oregon manages to prevent that, sound the sirens.
Hell yeah. I mean, I've been enjoying the secondary thus far. Let's get into this next one. Number 7, Penn State versus UCLA. That's right, it's a home game for Penn State. The Bruins, the hapless Bruins, are going over there. Will you be supporting them?
Penn State?
Whoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Penn State all day in this game. UCLA is they're done, dude.
I'd have to agree with you.
Golly, what a way to go out. Gross.
Yeah, UCLA, like I was joking about Washington being the worst in the Big Ten. It's either UCLA or Northwestern or Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, UCLA is just going to be, by the end of the season, UCLA is going to be so banged up and just destroyed.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel bad for them for the rest of their ride.
They don't necessarily do anything all that well right now. And I think, let's say, but Penn State has been playing down to everybody. Doesn't even matter the score. If you watch these games, like Penn State's offense is not a juggernaut per se, but I still think this is going to be like they beat them 27-3, but at halftime it was only 14-3. But I still think they're going to do pretty well, especially at home. And
it's tied
UCLA,
3. It's tied 3 at halftime. Final score 21-3.
Oh God!
Or you can't do 21-3, I guess, if it's already 3. But whatever that. 24-3.
Yeah,
24-3.
You could. They went for 2, and then they got 10 more points.
Sure, something.
I don't know. Hith, should I jot you down for UCLA here?
No, I got Penn State. I mean, like this game is like they just played this game. This game is Illinois versus Penn State, except in that it's at home for Penn State again. And UCLA is similar in many ways to Illinois, just like just worse. They've got a quarterback who's a 4-star on paper, but his offensive line can't protect him. He's got talented wide receivers. Like I like Bryant and Franklin, a lot, but he's not going to be able to access them because. Or just like Altmaier couldn't access him because he's getting eaten alive. Garbers can't access guys like Loya and Flores and et cetera. Even though I think Penn State's secondary is vulnerable, it doesn't matter because the pass protection is so poor. Yeah. Even though Illinois has good running backs, just like I think that UCLA has good running backs. It doesn't matter, can't run the ball because the offensive line can't open up holes. I think that Penn State's offense, as you say, they play down to everybody because they're they play too slow and they have a hard time converting them into touchdowns, but like they'll still grind you down. They'll grind UCLA down because UCLA can't stop the run. They couldn't stop Oregon's run, and Oregon wasn't even trying to run. Penn State's definitely going to, with Allen and Singleton. This is exactly, Penn State's going to see that UCLA is down to like 1.5, defensive tackles and just run the ball 10 million times. They just played this game against a better version of UCLA in Illinois, and you saw what the result was. It was like closer than it should have been, but like it was never in doubt, and this is not going to be in doubt.
Penn State, least watchable undefeated team, in my opinion. By the way, lines are so important in football. I've thought this for a while. I've been thinking this for a couple of weeks. I think they should rename the sport line ball, because you got the offensive line, you got the defensive line. There's probably the most
sideline,
the sideline, so most amount of lines on a playing surface out of any sport, maybe. With all the dash mark stuff. Line ball. Think it over.
It's got the most lines of any flat surface sport. That's fact.
You use the lines more than
two-dimensional sport.
Yeah. Here we go. Wisconsin versus Purdue. For me, this game, because of how disappointing Wisconsin season's been, like the bar was already pretty low for what they were going to do this year. They haven't even cleared it. Like they'd have to crank their heads up to even see it. But Purdue, as we've been saying, Purdue ain't good. So this really is like Wisconsin, how low you gonna go? Because to be at home to lose to this Purdue team who's lost to Oregon State, So
you're saying the wise decision here is to go with the home team, but they're even. It's like, good golly. Do I want to go for Purdue, though? They've been so disappointing every time I've picked them, but so has Wisconsin, so this sucks. Let's go with Wisconsin because they're at home, but watch Purdue eat their lunch.
Yeah, like this is Solid Verbal always says you have to have a reason to choose the other team. Don't just be like, in this regard, it's a good advice, because I'm looking at Wisconsin. I'm like, Wisconsin sucks. They're underwhelming. They're having a hard time. They're on their backup QB. I want to choose the other team, but then I'm looking at the other team. It's Purdue. They're on the road. Wisconsin fans are still going to show up, maybe more so because they're like, this could be the only win we get in a little while. So it's going to be Wisconsin. I got to choose Wisconsin. I would love to choose Purdue though, because I would love to catch up a little, but it's kind of, I think it's safe to say Wisconsin's more of a whole team. And it's got more of an identity. And maybe that first half against USC is going to help them in the long run. I don't know. Hith, you got the Boilermakers or you got the Badgers?
No, I got Wisconsin. I agree with you.
It'd be nice. I want to live in a world where Purdue beats Wisconsin, but
this game, I don't know. There's something that's tickling me, just like it sort of tickled you too. Just like I could see Purdue winning it, and sort of like a what the hell, maybe all their problems on their offense were Graham Harrell, and maybe firing Graham Harrell, they get the fired coach bump.
That happens sometimes. We've seen it before.
And it's not like Wisconsin strikes me as a very strong team. If there's been some sort of like artificial suppression that's been holding Purdue back, and hey, what's Wisconsin supposed to game plan, right? I could see an upset, happening. It definitely.
It may be a good game because both these teams are like, guys, let's get a win, and this could be it. What I mean?
It's just not smart to bet on it.
No. It's usually pretty smart to bet, as you say, but not on this one. Just do a little bet if you're going to do a bet on this one. Iowa, let's get into it. I got to click the button first. Damn. Number 3, Ohio State versus Iowa. This is the one that we've been talking about. Yes, Hythloday got some meaningful information out of Ohio State's butt kicking over Michigan State, but most of us normies didn't. This is one you would like to believe there's something to get out of, as in Iowa is at least half of a football team. They are at least half of a football team, as in defense. They do have a living, breathing defense. Typically, offense is the hard part, but maybe that can muck things up enough to at least make this game interesting. Or maybe Ohio State will just blow the doors off of them from the get-go, and like a 10-0 lead is too insurmountable for this team.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
That. I think it's that. I'm Ohio State. It sounds like they're doing just peachy kings.
Yeah, Ohio State at home. You know, maybe this is a game where it's like maybe Iowa has a lead at the half. I'd even be willing to believe that, where it just got ugly and Iowa's sitting on a 10-7. But I do think Ohio State wins this by at least 14 points. At home, Iowa's just I don't like them. Maybe they're my least favorite team outside of Liberty in college football, just because I don't like watching them. So I'm going with Ohio State, unfortunately. Plus, I want them to be undefeated when we beat them the week after.
Nerve-wracking.
Can the Hawkeyes pull this off? Are you going to back them in this?
No, I have Ohio State. You know, just anytime Iowa plays a team that's got a real offense, you know, that they fold.
Yeah.
You know, their defense is set up to take mediocre to bad offenses and drive them into the ground. Their defense is not set up to actually stop good offenses. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, binary in that way, and Ohio State's offense is actually good. The thing that there's only one thing that I'm actually curious about in watching this game is I am curious to see what kind of a dent Iowa's defensive line puts in Ohio State's offensive line. Like last year, Ohio State's offensive line was pretty bad, and so far they've looked better. Michigan State gave them an interesting test, but Michigan State's defensive line is not great this year. Like their best players left, and I think they're going to get their stiffest test up the middle, you know, this week against Iowa. So, like, I think, yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes. And I'm interested to see how, like, if there is pressure up the middle, how Howard deals with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like his decision, like he's made some bad decisions, like when he, you know, not under pressure. I'm interested to see if he has to deal with pressure, like what his decision making is like. It's just their schedule has been so bad. Like, yeah, you know, this is the closest thing to a real game they're going to play before they play Oregon, and even that, as you say, is against half a team. Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, we all got the Buckeyes. We're all being really boring. We've all chosen the same safe one so far. Northwestern versus number 23 Indiana. Aaron, I'm not gonna lie, Northwestern's terrible.
Yeah,
Indiana,
I remember you put them pretty deep. You put them pretty deep in the bottom. So and we like in Indiana. What is they're undefeated still, Indiana?
Undefeated, baby. 9 Windiana. The dream is alive.
Do we think that they can keep a streak going even against a team like Northwestern? Because every time you play a game, the odds get slimmer. And so,
okay.
I think Indiana's at 23. They're ranked, so I guess Indiana will probably win this one. Oh. Their loss is coming, though.
Okay. Actually, I'll just because I got their schedule up right now. It's actually pretty interesting how it's still pretty winnable. Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, at Michigan State. Then Michigan.
How many conference games has Indiana played so far?
Like 2, I do believe.
Okay.
Yes. UCLA and Maryland. Yeah. No, they're doing well. Okay. I'm also going with Indiana. They've got a pretty manageable schedule. I mean, they got some tough ones, but it's totally freaking believable. This is the year for them. I forget they don't even play us. Yeah, amazing.
What?
Amazing. It's just Ohio State is their Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, those are their toughest challenges remaining. So we'll see what happens. Pretty cool. I'm also going with Indiana. I love them. I've loved rooting for them. Northwestern, I also love them, but they're terrible at football. Hythloday, Northwestern?
No, I've got Indiana.
Yeah.
Northwestern is terrible at football. I mean, there's one thing on me to keep an eye on in this game, which is, there were a lot of turnovers the last time Indiana played football, and this one's going to be on the lake. With the crazy winds, and Indiana's a very heavy passing team. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, there could be some chaos in this game.
This could be a thing where they get 4 turnovers again, or turn over the ball 4 times again, and then still blow them out.
But I mean, Maryland's a better team than Northwestern, and Maryland couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it affect. It's not going to affect the bottom line. But there could be some chaos.
Yeah, could be. Nebraska versus Rutgers. Now, this is the first real ass game we've got, I think. This is the first one where you can choose whoever you want. Nebraska has lost 1 game, as we know, to Illinois. They've looked vulnerable in many. Their best game was that big win against Colorado, which, hey, Colorado's even looking a little better. But versus Rutgers. Rutgers is undefeated, having one of their best season starts in certainly recent history.
Yeah.
Nebraska versus Rutgers. I couldn't even tell you who's going to win this one. Nebraska is home.
I can.
And let's hear it.
It's Nebraska. Look at this man. He's an excited individual ready to go to number 1. Mm-hmm. He's got his corn. Mm-hmm. He's got his ball. He's got his red hat. He's ready.
What's he going to do with that corn? Why do you put it in his back pocket? You don't got a bucket?
I mean, it's a snack. No,
What's
he wants that. You grab a little corn, you take a little bite, you put it back in your pocket.
A little bite of raw corn. You ain't doing it on my cornfield. You get into work. I'm not paying you in corn. I'm barely paying you at all. Nebraska versus Rutgers.
You ever put a couple tots in your pocket, bro?
I want to believe in Rutgers winning this. I think I would still go with the home team normally. I'm also doing some gamesmanship of I want to catch up with Hyth. There's only so many options. I think Hythloday will go with Nebraska, and Rutgers is enough that I'm going to go with Rutgers. They haven't steered me wrong. I've chosen them every single week, and they've yet to lose, so I'm riding that Rutgers train.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Hyth, who do you got?
Well, gosh, I was actually thinking of taking Rutgers on the if you had taken Nebraska, I was going to pick differently from you to give you a shot. Frankly, if you had taken Nebraska, I was going to take Rutgers. So you took Rutgers, I'll take Nebraska.
All right.
You're wrong. I can see it. I can definitely see a Rutgers win here because I think Nebraska is unknown, and I can see Shiano and Harasimiak, the defensive coordinator for Nebraska, figuring out a way to confuse Raiola and to put them, to give themselves a defensive advantage. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I just don't think that Rutgers has the offensive potency to be effective in this game. Washington should have beat them, honestly, and Nebraska is just a better, they're a more talented team than Washington is. And it was only Washington just repeatedly shooting themselves in the foot that kept, that gave, they basically handed the win, to Rutgers. I just don't think Nebraska is going to do that. I think Rule's just a way better coach than that. Now, if it's a 1-score game, it's Nebraska. Maybe.
Yeah.
But no, I just think that they just outclassed this team.
And at home. I mean, that's got
like I think Rutgers is going to have to throw to win this game, and I think Nebraska's probably just going to win on that front.
That's a good way to put it. Now we got up next. This is also going to be a good one for different reasons. Washington versus number 10 Michigan. So Washington is at home for this one. They are bad. Keep that in mind. Michigan flawed, but they're number 10. They've only lost one game to a top whatever, the second team in the nation or something like that. Aaron, are you backing your Washington Huskies in this one?
These are your Washington. I don't think so, actually. I think Michigan is going to come in and tear down some shit. I will say, I don't know what the weather is like there, but it's getting colder and the raining is beginning here. And it is already a slippery field made of soap bubbles. So possibly it's going to be a wild ride. Let's put it that way. And maybe Washington will win this from that.
So you're going with Washington?
No, I think Michigan.
Okay. Yeah, for many reasons. I mean, if it were a super rainy day, that only helps Michigan because they were going to run the ball regardless. Washington, on the other hand, even though they got Jonah Coleman, they are more inclined to try to pass their way out of situations. So that would help. Also, Michigan's logo is dubs down just naturally. I think that will help them. And I just think Michigan is likely. Like, maybe they're not going to completely run away with this because they haven't done that to anybody. They're having a hard time closing out games. But I do think they'll just consistently be able to get enough yardage to not embarrass themselves on the ground. And then they're just going to eat Will Rogers. Just literally.
It's a 17-14 game.
God, I hope it isn't, because I mean it'd be fun because you're giving Washington fans hope and then ripping it away from them. That's wonderful.
The field goal is the first 3 points.
I think it's 27-14, but an ugly 27-14.
Yeah.
Hith, we know you love your Huskies. You're backing them this time.
No, I got Michigan for basically the reasons that you state, and we've talked about earlier. Like, on paper, actually, Washington's a better team. But I think that on the paper stats are probably inflated by Washington just playing a bunch of weak opponents. Michigan's schedule has been tougher. They played
they played Texas.
I think. Texas is by far a better team than anybody that Washington has played. USC is by far a better team than anybody than Washington has played, and probably Minnesota is a better team than anybody in Washington has played. Hell, Fresno is probably a better team. Nah, Rutgers probably.
Yeah, Fresno State just lost to fucking UNLV without.
Yeah, you're right.
Logo.
Although I don't know, UNLV might be a good team.
It may be the best Group 5.
I think that Michigan's just look, they've been through some stuff. They're still trying to figure out their quarterback situation, but I just think Michigan's played a much tougher schedule, and that sort of explains the statistical disparity. I think Washington is a paper tiger in that regard, and on top of that, they're coached by Jed Fish, who is not a national championship winning coach. If this game's close at all, I definitely give it to Michigan's coaching staff over Washington's, which keeps shooting themselves in the foot.
No joke.
I think Michigan probably just knows how to win in a way that Washington has prevented themselves from winning.
Nepotism doesn't always work.
And if and any risk that their weather elements only hurt Washington in this game, given how much they need to pass in order to win. They could run to win because Coleman is probably the best back in this game, but Fish doesn't know it, so
Coleman's going to be a really good duck next year. Now, here we go. final option. Minnesota versus number 11 USC. That's right. Minnesota is at home. They have been underwhelming. USC is ranked number 11.
Yep.
They almost beat Michigan in the big house. They did not. They survived Wisconsin. What do you got, Aaron?
They're gonna take Minnesota. This is a USC win.
Aaron, I remember back in the day when you were full of, just a vigor, a boyish charm. You looked at the world like it was brand spanking new, and college football was your platter. You were enjoying so many different tastes. You were really living life on the edge. Yeah. Now, I don't know this disheveled old man I'm looking at in his basement. His moldy old Seattle basement. You've learned too much. That's exactly it. And that is why I'm going to inspire you by choosing a team.
Wow.
Are they good? No. Do they do some stuff that's good? Yeah. They like to run the ball. They want to run the ball. They got a defense that can keep them competitive until they get cracked open by just having nothing on offense. But you, my friend, are still a summer child at heart, despite having a nasty old wrinkled face of an old man. In your heart, there's still a young boy.
Yeah.
Pumping away. And
I have a little boy soul.
Yes, exactly. And that is why I'm going to teach you something here. USC will hurt you. USC will let you down. When you think USC's in that corner, then that is when Miller Moss is going to have his worst game of his career. And that is why, Aaron, I'm going with the Minnesota fucking Golden Gophers here to defend their territory.
Wow.
Boom. And I don't care what Hythloday has to say. That's how it's going to go.
So you think USC is going to fall down to like number 18, in the rankings? You
nailed it up.
You think they're about to take 18. A dip?
They're about to take a dip.
That would invigorate my my explorer, my living on the edge, my razor's edge inner child. Mm-hmm. That would invigorate him. I would be back ready to go crazy on the picks.
If that happens.
If this happens, if you will excite me, sir. I will start going nuts on picks.
Okay. Hopefully I'll snap you out of this choose the favorite situation.
I know.
Hythloday, are you back in your Trojans?
Yeah, I got USC in this game. I just don't think that Minnesota is going to be able to keep up with USC's wide receivers. Like, this is one of the teams that I had in mind when I was talking about, Big Ten teams, particularly Big Ten West teams that are, going to face a rude comeuppance when they have to deal with, the East teams that they didn't have to play as often in the previous schedule, and the new West, teams, or Pac-12 teams that are joining them that have actual wide receivers, and on top of that, their supposed pass defense had collapsed last year, and that was last year when they had the Big Ten West, protections, and they've lost, some of their good. They lost Newbin, who was a really good, defensive back for them at the end of last year. I just don't think their secondary is in shape at all to defend what USC does really well, which is hit undefendable wide receivers. So, yeah, I think this is going to look like the Wisconsin game all over again.
Well, you don't need a secondary when you take control of the clock and run through the Trojans. That's what's going to happen, baby. Now, let's get into the results. That's right. These were last week's. Adam was a mere 1 point behind Hythloday.
Bravo.
Aaron, 3 points behind Aaron, 4 points behind Hyth. So that keeps the scores at 49, Hyth, 48, Adam, 45, Aaron. Now, here are the actual results after last week's picks. Boom. That is right. Adam is falling behind. Aaron catching up just a little bit. Actually, no, he's falling behind even before.
I'm falling behind.
More so. Yeah, he's doing pretty bad. He's spiraling. 57 points for Hyth. Adam is 2 points behind Hith, 55 points, and 6 points replaced from or away from first place is Aaron. But I think my pick is gonna light that fire in you, and you're just gonna be going bing bang boom, choosing underdogs, getting it left and right.
We'll see. It's a whole new conference. It's tough to tell.
Maybe what'll get you back into it, Aaron, is let us all, to end this episode, this extra long, extra special episode, let us make a crazy prediction, a bold prediction, if you will, for Oregon versus Michigan State. Oregon versus Michigan State. Anyone got one off the top of their head? A bold prediction? Because I put no thought into this right now.
Bold prediction is that Michigan State will lead the game 14-3 going into the half.
That is bold. That's so specific. And I'm going to hate that so fucking much. if we only put 3 points on this team, I'm going to hate it.
It'll be a slow first half for us as we're like, trying to weather through.
I hate it.
Basically, here's the deal. Somebody's going to have something going on in their personal life that it's going to kind of affect the locker room a little bit. They're going to have to work through it, cheer him up. It's going to be a real Ted Lasso type of situation, IRL. And so they'll come out of the locker rooms for the second half, and it'll be Mighty Ducks all over the place.
All right. I personally think this is something I've wanted forever, and I think the defense in tandem with the special teams and offense will deliver it for us. I think this will actually be a game in which we blank Michigan State. That is right. 0 points scored by Michigan State. It's what I've wanted for so long.
That was my initial 77-0.
Not only that, but Jonathan Smith will actually be spotted at that Corvallis Goodwill that he dropped off all of his stuff, trying to get some of it back. Because he actually there's like a jacket that he's like,
he's like, I did not mean to give you that sweater.
That was a good jacket, actually. Yeah, that was a good sweater. Or like, I forgot my dad gave me that sweater, and I
thought I had 2 of it, but it's actually this other one that I had 2 of. So now I've got 2 of that one, but 0 of this one.
Yeah, exactly. Hith, got a bold prediction to take us out?
There will be a play in this game in which Childs will go to a bootleg pass, and he will turn around. He'll come out of the bootleg, turn around, and immediately have a dude who sacks him for like a 17-yard loss. The reason that I say that is this team is very dependent on deep play action bootleg passing for big gains. But the way that they set them up, like by formation, and even which direction, specifically when they are aligned on the left hash and then they roll out to the right. Like Childs is way more comfortable rolling to his right. The formation and the direction is very predictable, and they're like teams have started to figure it out. And I think Oregon's probably going to detect a situation that where it's like, oh, I know what's going to happen, and they're just going to have somebody, an OLB or a safety, just be like, no, I'm just going right for him. I'm just going to blow past whatever dude is going to try to set up in protection, like before he can set up, and is just going to come scream and hit him, immediately.
Hell yeah. In that case, I'm going to add, I'm going to tack on to mine, Bryce Betcher strip sack, to the house.
Ooh.
My man.
Yeah.
I had a great time. Love talking to both of you. We're undefeated still, which means this could be very well be the final season of the Quack podcast.
Oh, yeah.
National championship. We're done, baby. So we have
to win the national championship, and this thing is over.
Otherwise, that'd be the most depressing podcast finale It's just us
Yeah.
losing a national championship and then forever.
No,
gone.
we go to the Natty, we win it, and then you and I hit Control Alt Delete on this thing.
That's right. Not on life, but on the pod. All right, y'all.
We have to turn the keys.
Yeah, one
at
thing
the
to
same
say.
time.
I'm trying to get the hell out of here. All right, y'all. See you next week. Quack, quack. Go down.
Go Ducks!